I went completely sober, like I wasn't even drinking coffee, all of a sudden my channel was blown open and I started receiving so much information. I was literally like sitting down and just receiving information. They were explaining to me how everything worked, the quantum realm, the geometry, all my astral experiences started making sense. It's almost like the synapses and the neurons and everything going on in my brain was like connecting. And so that took it took like a few months to recalibrate, and I would say almost a whole year to really fully settle and anchor in. And then just after that, my light language started coming through.
Welcome to the Awaken Magazine podcast, where we feature inspiring leaders who are helping our world awaken to love. I'm your host, David Trotter, and today I want to share with you an amazing conversation with Althea Lucrezia Avanzo. She's a multidimensional channel and light language ascension coach. And in this conversation, Althea walks us through her own process of awakening that involves sobriety and overcoming really challenging relationship situations. It is an inspiring and heartwarming story that I can't wait for you to hear. She also talks to us about light language, what it is, how it works, how it flows through not only her words, but the words that she writes down on paper, as well as through the use of her hands, which I saw firsthand at Conscious Life Expo earlier this year. And then toward the end of our conversation, I invite her to channel messages, and it is absolutely powerful. I cannot wait for you to experience that part of this experience. Now, if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the Awaken Magazine podcast. Subscribe on YouTube, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Click subscribe, leave a rating or a review. That's an easy way for you to help us spread the word about these incredible interviews that we're releasing each and every week. All right, let's dive into this conversation with Althea Lucrezia Avanzo. Well, Althea, it's great to be with you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Take us back to those days in your life where you first started to realize that you had some unique gifts or access to perhaps see things that other people couldn't see. What was that like for you? When was that in your life?
So I was always one of those kids that couldn't sleep because of shadows in her room. So I actually had encounters with, the my psychic gifts and activations from a very young age. So I would see shadows, I would get prophetic dreaming, premonitions. I would encounter a lot of different beings, sometimes not so pleasant in the astral space and the astral realms. And I come from a long lineage of psychic women. My mom is psychic. My grandmother was psychic. They never did any psychic work for a living, but all the women in my family have been psychic. So it's kind of like been in my blood. And then I really started working more with these energies. I got my first tarot deck around 12 or 13 years old. So I was pretty young. And it was always something that was kind of like my family was always quite supportive, like they didn't oppose it. They were like, oh, okay, like she has an interest in this. Well, good for her sort of thing. So I was very fortunate from that aspect that it was never something that was frowned upon in my family.
Mm. What about friends that you were growing up with? And I believe you grew up in Italy. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
What did your friends say? Did you kind of allow that part of your life to be shared with them?
Yes and no. Some of them were very interested, just like me, in the tarots and in the pendulum and in kind of like connecting to these other realms. And I find that these things, they find a direction where they're needed to go, and if someone's not interested, it sort of like just bypasses them. So again, I never really found much resistance in the dynamic around me. It didn't make up like all of my life, because I was obviously still like growing up and trying to navigate things as a teenager and then getting a little bit older. But when I was younger, I think, yeah, I had some friends who were really supportive. Some of them are still in my life now, and then some that just really didn't understand it.
You just had a creature crawl behind you
Oh, it's
in
my
real
cat.
life. In real life, yeah. I think it's not. I don't think that's a spirit. It's so cute. It just climbed up inside the bookcase. Yeah, that was so
Yes,
fun. I was like,
run down there. Yeah. I tried to get her out before we started, but she's not having it. So I guess I don't think she'll move around much, but yeah,
it does.
she's
Yeah, it's beautiful. So fun. Yeah, it's just like climbed right up in there. That's so fun. So, at what point in your life did you begin to sense, okay, I want to use these gifts to serve humanity in more of like a career path? How did that unfold for you? Did you have like a regular job, at some point and then kind of make the shift or?
So I always wanted to go into some aspect of healing. I just didn't know what it was. Like when I was younger, I wanted to be a doctor. So I thought of going down that direction, and then I changed so many different career paths. I had quite big experiences and shifts around my mid 20s. I started with my Reiki very early at like 21, 22. I started going to Reiki and understanding what Reiki was and energy healing. So I'm classically Reiki trained, which gave me a very strong basis from an energetic perspective, and also from kind of like a understanding, how life works, timelines, and working in the quantum realm. So that was my basis, and I started having a Reiki studio about 2 3 years before 2 years before the pandemic hit. And then when that happened, I was actually working in events, and so that's that's I was organizing and running very very big vintage markets.
Ah,
That was my other line of work, and I supplied shops for vintage clothing. I would import and export, and that all stopped, and so I completely moved my career into the healing business and into that kind of journey. But I had a few different, quite traumatic, intense experiences that also brought me to where I am now.
you can't leave us hanging by just saying, "Hey, I had some traumatic experiences, by the way." It's like, come on, like, help us,
Yeah.
take us behind the scenes. And also, I know you're traveling. It seems like you're moving to different places. You're in South Africa now, is where you live. So maybe help us. What events unfolded, and how did that was that connected to different locations that you were traveling?
So, no, at the time I wasn't traveling as much as I am now. I'm mainly traveling to do grid work now and to hold workshops and retreats around the world. But when I had my big activations, I basically was in a space where in my early 20s, I was really suppressing my gifts because I was struggling, because I was feeling so deeply everything from everyone all the time. And at the time, I didn't know that that was it. So I started like drinking and abusing substances and, going down a path that wasn't really for my highest alignment. And I actually ended up in hospital from having problems in my kidneys. And that was a really big wake up call. And it was completely lifestyle related, and that was a very big wake up call for me. So that was when, okay, like, and I was like 26, 27 at the time, so I was like, I'm a bit young to have these kind of problems. And it was a very big wake up call for me. And then after that I went completely sober. I mean, it's not like I was like, full blown intense addict, but I wasn't really living a life that was in organic alignment with my highest timeline, let's put it that way. And then what happened is when that happened and I went completely sober, like I wasn't even drinking coffee, all of a sudden my channel was blown open and I started receiving so much information. And I think for like 4 to 8 months in that year, that amount of time, I was still kind of holding down a part time job, but it was very difficult because all I was doing, I was literally like sitting down and just receiving information. They were explaining to me how everything worked, the quantum realm, the geometry, all my work that I had done in research in conspiracy theories when I was younger started like making sense. All my astral experiences started making sense. It's almost like the synapses and the neurons and everything going on in my brain was like connecting, and everything started making sense. I suppose that was the DNA activating. And so that took it took like a few months to recalibrate, and I would say almost a whole year to really fully settle and anchor in. And then just after that, my light language started coming through. I had about a year of that. And then I had another very intense life experience with a very abusive karmic partner who was physically and emotionally very abusive to
Mm.
me, and I was able to actually, leave that and set my boundary. And so I actually help a lot of women now who've come out of, violent and abusive relationships. And that was also another very intense traumatic experience that I had that's helped me to be in the space where I am now.
My goodness. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That's amazing. It's amazing how, sometimes people talk about an awakening as like this one time experience, but it's always just like over and over and over, like all these different layers and, things get interwoven in our lives. And yeah, it's just amazing how it unfolds over time. How did you make your way to South Africa?
So that's a very interesting question. I was actually, my parents migrated here from Italy, maybe like 20 years ago. They decided to move here. And I was still living in Italy at the time. And then a few years after, I came here to spend a few years to study, and then I met someone and I actually decided to stay, and then that union ended and I still decided to stay. And it's very interesting because I was then told later on, as I started getting more into this line of work, that there's actually, like, I'm actually holding the grid in a specific way here. And this is why I was relocated to this part of the earth. I actually did some work up north. There's quite a few sacred sites that have been activated, where there's been a lot of being and viewings, and I mean, I saw ships and I did work with them there. So I was living in the north part of the country for about 4 to 5 years, and then I relocated south again. So I've traveled the country and done quite a bit of work this side of the world. Yeah.
And you have a child, is that right?
Yes, I do. I have a almost 5-year-old.
That's great. Um, how do you navigate being a mom and also doing all these amazing things, in the world in terms of like bringing transformation and healing? And how do those things, I don't know, work together?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm a single parent. So it really means a lot for me that I have my parents and they help me out quite a lot, especially when I'm traveling. Because like I take her with me, like, to Europe. When we go to Europe, she'll come with me. But when I maybe come to the States or travel, like I was in Costa Rica running a retreat in November, and it's not, I can't take her with me. So yeah, I think we have a beautiful dynamic. It's a lot of really good boundaries. I think, like, making sure there's time for myself, making sure I'm actually in a union now with a partner. He's not the dad, but making sure there's time for my partner, making sure there is time for my child, making sure that work doesn't get put behind. So it's just, I think it's a lot of good planning. It's down to that.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned earlier that your light language started coming in at during this whole unfolding. I'd love to hear why, why do you think that came into your life? What purpose does it serve? What is it? Like, for people who aren't familiar, maybe just give us a light language 101 from Althea's perspective.
Yeah, of course. So, light language is basically the new technology that's coming in to assist the ascension and the awakening process. It's kind of like a new tool that a lot of star seeds and a lot of people can start channeling. And it's basically, the way I understand and how I see it, it's a direct expression of the soul that is also connected to source consciousness. So, what happens is, for me, like, I will bring through sacred geometry, I will bring through different codes and different vibrational frequencies that then work directly on the person's DNA structure, and it bypasses the conscious mind and works beyond the constraints of space and time. So I can channel some light language today and code it so that someone received it yesterday, or so that they receive it tomorrow and they're on the other side of the world. So it's a really versatile tool that I think, yeah, is really here to expand and assist the ascension and awakening process of the planet. And it can be sung, it can be spoken, it can be written, it can be expressed through movement. So there's a lot of different modalities that the light language can come through. And when I started channeling, it was back in 2017, and there were maybe like 10, 20 light language channelers online. Now there's like tens of thousands. So it's really, really grown exponentially. For me, I always knew that there was a channel. Well, everyone has a channel, but I always knew that there was some sort of very galactic connection when I was 9 years old, I saw on those old box TVs in the 90s, someone say in like a commercial for a program that was coming on like the next day, someone said, "Oh, like I'm from Pleiades." And I like stopped and I was like, "Oh, I'm also actually from there. Like that sounds like where I am from, and I was 9. So the light language for me and the way I understand it now is galactically infused with these healing vibrational frequencies from our galactic ancestors. While before it would be called something like speaking in tongues, and people still do that, that would be a more earth-based channeling of light language. So yeah, so I mean, I can speak about light language for the whole hour, but this is just kind of like the basis of it.
Yeah, yeah. When I was 18, in a Christian context, I started speaking in tongues and have had that experience, throughout my life. And then in more recent years, have really reintroduced that to my experience. And even last year during a medicine ceremony, well, maybe a couple years ago, it was actually during 5 MEO DMT. I spoke in light language, speaking in tongues, whatever you want to call it, um, un like the word is escaping me right now, but basically like without my control. It completely came through me. Like I mean it was like fierce. And for some reason during medicine ceremonies, it comes through me just so fierce. And I can obviously, tap into it at any point in time. But yeah, what a unique tool. And so how do you utilize that tool in both your daily life just for yourself? Is it connected to grid work? Is it connected to your one-on-one sessions? Like how do you utilize it?
So it really varies. I mean, my channel's very embodied right now, so it's not something that I like call in or switch on and off. It's just kind of like always there. And it's
Hmm.
funny just to mention the plant medicine because I had one of my first big activations also on psilocybin back in 2017. So I do
Hmm.
find that the plant can actually, blow you quite open,
Hmm.
if that's the direction that you're supposed to go down. So yeah, I mean, I do it in my sessions with my clients. It will assist me whenever I'm doing grid work around the world. It will assist me, when I'm doing conferences, lives, and it's always a quite a unique experience. I channel from two different higher versions of myself: a ninth dimensional Pleiadian being, which is a version of myself, and a 12th dimensional mantis being, which is another higher version of myself. But I find that because, and I actually gave a lecture on this last year at the expo, because the channel within us is so multidimensional. It's always different. Like if I'm channeling for myself, I use it for myself for my own healing in my own journey, or if I'm channeling for a one-on-one, will be a different channeling that if I'm channeling collectively or if I'm channeling live at a workshop. And there's all these different like shades and nuances and aspects of the channeling itself that then expands into the light language.
Hmm. When I've seen you channel the use of your hands, I found that was the very first time that I saw someone speaking in light language, utilizing your hands in such a dynamic way. And I will tell you, when I watched you do it, it felt very emotional. Like I felt emotional, like watching it. Like I felt a sacredness to your hand movements. And what was fascinating was I felt a connection to that because during medicine in the last couple of years, I found that I was called to move my hands a lot while I was doing it. And so intuitively, right? I just didn't, it's not like somebody saw, and I hadn't even seen anybody. So when I saw you doing it, I was like, oh my God, that's what's been happening to me. That's so crazy. It's so weird. That chick's doing it. This is amazing, you know? So talk to me about your hand movement. So what does that mean? And how did it just come organically? I mean, some ways to somebody from the outside, it's like, this gal is really putting on a show. I mean, this is quite a dance of the hands. But what's going on inside of you?
So I actually first activated with writing and movement. So my hands activated before even my throat. So that was how it opened up for me. I was writing it for about maybe 6 months, and then my hands sort of like automatically started moving. And the way I understand and how I see it is they actually anchor the geometry within the grid structure. So as the geometry comes through the phonetics, it gets anchored in with the hands. And it really depends. Like for me, if I'm doing like a system clearing, like I'll literally go in, like I'll literally start pulling out things from people's systems and energy fields. So it is very, very organic. Sometimes that my actual fingers, if I'm working on someone, there will be like a cone of light that just comes out of the tip of my fingers, and it will literally light specific areas and parts of someone's DNA, or someone's cells or someone's organs. It really, really depends. But when I'm channeling collectively, or I'm doing like a video or something like that, it will generally be more like the geometry, or it will be giving kind of like instructions to the system and the energy field of what it's supposed to do, as it's receiving the codes.
Do the fingernails help with the empowerment? Like, do I need long fingernails like you to make it happen?
So I've got little aliens and spaceships and moons. I like to curate my hands a lot. And if you even look at my tattoos, I channeled these. Most of my tattoos are channeled, and they actually open up and become portals of light when I'm working. So it is all
Ah.
part of it. I don't have to, you don't have to have long nails, but I find that, yeah, everything with intention, helps.
Yeah, that's cute. That's good. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so you mentioned ninth dimensional Pleiadian self and 12th dimensional mantis being. Like those are two parts of your higher self that you work with or channel. Okay, for somebody who's not familiar with this, like take us down to kindergarten. What does this mean? What are you doing?
So basically, what happens is, we all navigate different lifetimes and different experiences. And what happens is sometimes something occurs that is soul fragmentation, which doesn't mean that you're not whole, like you're completely and fully whole, but you forget, or you go through traumas in parallel previous or future lifetimes, because, beyond the constraints of time and space and our third dimensional density, when we operate from the 5D, there's no limitation of time or space. So it's kind of like all happening at the same time. So just to kind of like simplify it, you start integrating parts of yourself from other timelines. And when you do that, you start activating more of your gifts, more of your dormant DNA, more of whatever direction, whatever soul mission, whatever it is that you need to do and bring through here. And this is just two aspects and parts of myself that are existing within, they're existing within different dimensional densities. Their soul density is ninth and 12th, but their actual physical existence, they could be existing in 5, 6, or 7D. I think they move in between, but the soul, the journey that the soul has been through is gone through to that level. And then at some point the souls actually decide to, if they want to stay or if they want to join and go back to source consciousness, and then, reintegrate. And these two parts of myself are still learning in their own experience, but I was able to integrate that within my being now, because, we are all one. And I have access to these versions of me that divinely guide me, and then connect, and then, through them, and even just through me, not necessarily even needing them, I'll connect to source consciousness. But it's like two guides. We can, if you want to really simplify it, two guides that are also part of you.
hmm How did you come in contact with them? How did your awareness come to be like, okay, this is who I'm connecting with? These two like these two parts of myself. How did that come to you?
So the first Palladian version, I mean, I always knew that it was around me. Like since I was young, I always knew that there were Palladian beings around me. And then when the light language started coming through, I started slowly integrating this being until it anchored more fully. And the mantis being, it actually came through to me in drawing and in art pieces. And in those, I was like, oh, okay. And then I sat and then I started connecting, because my written code, and my drawn code, to me, sounds and feels very different to my spoken code. So that's kind of like how I use these two parts of myself differently. When I channel technology, it's mantis and sometimes Arcturian technology, and that can come through a lot written. but also spoken. And then my mantis version of self is connected also to my ancient Atlantean lifetime and to the work that I did back then. And so that kind of also came through together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you mentioned grid work earlier. For those of our listeners who aren't familiar with what grid work is, once again, I just love I gotta tell you, you are so clear and articulate in your articulation. You're so articulate in your articulation of these subjects of, helping your own personal story, but also educating us. I love to educate our listeners on subjects that maybe they're just being exposed to for the first or second or third time. Yeah, so take us through grid work. What are you doing? What does that mean?
Yeah. So again, interesting that you asked because I held a lecture this year at the expo on the grid work. So grid work has been something that I learned to do on the spot. Like, I would be basically divinely guided to certain places. So this is a perfect example that I always use. This was back in 2022. I was told to go with my partner at the time to this event in Mozambique at this beautiful place. And I was like, okay, why do I need to go there? And my guides were like, just go and you'll understand once you get there. And then when I got there, I had to clear a whole beach that had been part of 500 mermaids that had been massacred there. And I had to move through ritual, move through energy work, working with candles, with prayer, invocation. And I cleared this whole beach, this whole energetic timeline. I collapsed it and I neutralized it so that the earth still wasn't holding this density, this pain, this suffering that all these souls had been through. And by doing that, I also assisted in the integration of soul fragment retrieval from some individuals. Funnily enough, a friend of mine who was there with me, she, as this happened, she downloaded within her system the memory of a lifetime, and she was also massacred and murdered there. But it can be as simple as someone entering a sacred space, even something like a church, and then feeling light through your body. And just by doing that, you might be activating something within you that is activated within the grid, within the system. And what's going to be happening in this year and the next one, 2025 and 2026, is a lot more star seeds are going to be called to travel to specific places because some of us carry specific DNA and encoded vibrational frequencies that connect directly to that part of the grid within the earth and are needed to be activated. So be mindful if you are listening to this and you're getting called to go to a specific place, there is probably a reason behind it. It's not just your imagination. So yeah, and again, as I said, I work all over the world. I was in Costa Rica last year. I'm running a Bali retreat this year in September. So I trust, and then sometimes I'll know beforehand what needs to be done, but most of the time I'll kind of like get there and see how it goes.
Hmm. What is the ultimate goal of grid work? Like, is there an ultimate, like I hear, okay, clearing the space, removing the density, allowing the earth to kind of, I don't know, go back to its original state of beauty, or like, what's the ultimate goal holistically?
Well, I think it would probably be raising the baseline vibrational frequency of the earth and the planet
Hmm.
itself.
Hmm.
So assisting Gaia. And, if you clear a space and, if before there was, density there and someone walked through it, they would feel like a negative feeling, but if you clear
Hmm.
it and then someone walks through it, then, they're either neutral or they might feel a joy or a happy feeling. So I think, every little bit helps. And yeah, I think the ultimate goal would be to raise the frequency. Yeah.
Hmm. You mentioned someone who was with you at that location, and they had where the 500 mermaids were massacred, and this woman sensed like, oh my gosh, I was one of those individuals, right? She had that sensation or that thought or that experience. And then you just mentioned that perhaps there are some of us that are feeling called to different locations, and you said, don't just think it's your imagination, right? Actually trust. How do you navigate? I'm thinking about these two events, right? And we have these sensations, these experiences. How do we handle, like, did this really happen? Or am I making this up in my head? That's question number one. Question number two is the people around us, when they have those experiences, and they could sound kind of far out, like, yes, I was a mermaid murdered on a beach. You know what I mean? Like, how do we trust them, like assimilate that? You know what I mean? Because you can kind of look at people going, you're telling me some pretty far fetched things. but wait, I'm telling myself some of these pretty far-fetched. How do you navigate all of that?
So for me, I mean, this is my life, and my reality is, existing within these dimensional densities and in this world. So I'm pretty much surrounded by people who are, familiar and aware, and they don't think I'm weird anymore.
Right, right, right.
But I think for a day-to-day person that is navigating these things, I think this is where the beauty of technology and community really helps. There's a lot of beautiful communities online, and connecting to similar people, and having the support and really trusting yourself. And I think I find when you're grounded, when your mind is quiet, when you're operating from a neutral space, it's a lot easier to understand the messages, and it's a lot easier
Mm.
to understand what it is that you're receiving. If you're too busy worrying about the past or the future, you're going to miss it and you're going to struggle. But we are all divinely guided. We all have a channel. We all have guides. We all have the possibility to, live a life more in alignment through our psychic vision, intuition, and gifts. So it's really just a matter of practice and tuning in. And the more you do, the better you get at it. Like sport or exercise, everything.
Yeah, yeah. I've had lots of conversations with my partner Mandy where I am knowing something, right? I know I can. I've had these experiences recently under medicine where I started channeling um, uh, very powerfully. I can see inside of people that I don't know. I'll have somebody give me a name. I just did this several months ago. I called a friend. I'm like, under medicine. I'm like, it's happening right now. The messages are coming through. Give me names of people that I don't know. And then all of a sudden, I'm inside of them. I can see inside of them. I see these things that are happening. And it's kind of like you just said, when it happens to you, like for me, I just know, like you can't talk me out of it. Like I know what I saw. You could tell me anything, and I'm like, well, okay, it might sound crazy, but I know what I saw, and it was freaking legit, And that's part of that trusting. I think that you're
Yeah,
talking about, yeah,
yeah,
trusting
yeah.
ourselves. Yeah, I've read about this work that you do with something called the rainbow ray spectrum, and um, how does it how does your energetic imprint influence your mission? That's the question that I've gotten written down here because I'm not even sure what this is. So I'm learning here. Talk to me.
I'll I'll break it down. So the rainbow ray spectrum is just a vibrational frequency that I work with, and it's very connected to my ninth dimensional Palladium being version of self. It's almost like if you imagine like a spectrum of rainbow ray light emanating and coming out from my heart. And a lot of people who have vision activated will see this while I'm channeling. So let's say that if we were maybe in a plant medicine experience together and you would be visually activated, you would actually see how this works around me. And it's so funny because when I was growing up, I thought it was normal, but I would just see rainbows everywhere, like all the time, and I would ask people, and sometimes they would be like, no, like, and they wouldn't see them. And then when I became older and I started, doing more of this work, I understood that and they said to me, this is your energetic imprinting. This is how you work. And it's quite interesting because sometimes I get taken to these higher realms, and I see these places where there's colors that we also don't have, and there is like no way I can describe that because it's just it's just so insane to be able to see that. So I don't know if this breaks it down a bit. I'm also learning as I go, so a lot of this stuff is I mean, I've gotten better, and I try to do my best. But sometimes some of these concepts and the geometry and what's behind it is so complex that the actual like English linguistics doesn't give you the possibility to explain it, and unless you actually seeing it. But I
Mhm.
guess this is the best that I can give right now.
Yeah, yeah. You do one-on-one sessions with individuals. I know there's a long wait list currently for people to work with you. If someone does come to you, what is generally the presenting challenge that they have, or the thing that they're desiring, and maybe take us through what does that one-on-one session look like?
So I offer a wide a range of different sessions. I also train people to do what I do and anchor into their gifts and open up their vision, their psychic intuition, their clear cognizance. But if someone just comes for like a once-off session, it really depends. Like sometimes I'll go in their field and I'll see what they need. Most of the time, people struggle with grounding. Boundaries is a big one. Spinal column, nervous system sometimes is affected. A lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, my third eye is blocked. I can't see things. Actually, no, 95% of people's third eyes are open. They just have blockages in the lower chakras. And because the energy flows as a toroidal field, the energy can't get up here. So they can't access this because they're not clearing their emotions. Their heart is in grief or in pain, or they're not speaking their creativity or setting their boundaries. So there's a few standard things, let's say, that a lot of people navigate and deal with. And then I'll also coach and give tools based on, who I have in front of me and what they need. But I mainly train people. And then in the trainings, I also do these clearings for them as well. And then another session that I also offer is Akashic clearing. So I'll go into their parallel past and previous timelines, and I'll see if there's patterns like codependency or attachments or anything that's affecting them in this life that I can work on clearing and assisting. I'll hold space and I'll initiate the healing and the clearing, but then obviously it's down to the individual to do their own work as well. So this is the ways that some of the ways in which I can help. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you have 6-week and 6-month programs that you offer on your website. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. So it's the same program. It's just distributed differently depending on people's time, financial availability, and all of that. We start basically, it's a journey through 3D, 4D into 5D and up. And I basically teach them how to access the Akash, how to clear their own systems and energy field. If their light language is activated, we, bring it out more. If they wanting to activate it, we work on that too. And then I give them like tools and homework and things to do in between. I work organically with every one of my clients. Some people come to me and they say, I want to move past, my traumatic life with my ex-husband, and we work more on that. Some people come to me and they're like, I want to open a healing business. Can you help me? And then I train them into, going into a space where they can do that with integrity and where they're sure of what they're doing. So there's that. I also have a business mentoring that I do as well. So if anyone wants to start like a spiritual business, like how to understand the energetics behind that, and how to, call in clients, how to work with abundance, which goes hand in hand with your boundaries. So I try to, be as organic and versatile as possible.
Yeah, tell me about this upcoming Bali retreat.
Yeah, so the retreat is from the 13th to the 19th of September. It's going to be in Ubud, Bali, and it's so beautiful because I had my Costa Rica retreat last year, and 3 people that were on that actually rebooked for Bali. So for me, I was like, wow, like, how powerful is that? Yeah, basically, like whoever comes will have access to me 24/7. So you can literally ask me whatever you want, and I'll just channel it for you. I have some allocated workshops there where we're going to be doing galactic activations, timeline clearing, Akashic clearing. I work with the early plant medicine I work with is sacred shamanic hape, which is tobacco,
Mhm, mhm.
which will be powdered, and that will help with clearing the system. That's optional. You don't have to do it, but I find that it works nicely with integrating and grounding the experience. And then, we'll also be visiting spaces around Bali. We'll be doing sound baths and healing. We'll be immersed into like sacred waters. We'll be visiting temples. So it's quite a dynamic retreat as well. There's quite a few things that I've planned. So it's going to be very beautiful. I'm only taking a set number of people. I've already got about 12 booked. I think I'm taking maybe 3 or 4 more. So it will be nice to see who else is called to come in.
Mm. Well, I know one of the things that I asked you prior to our interview is like, would you be willing to channel some light language, with us? And I guess I'm wondering, is there a question that we should pose, or is it more of a desire to activate this within others? What would you suggest?
So generally, whenever I pull through collectively, is almost always like system clearing because that's generally what
Mm.
people need. But
Mhm.
it'll do whatever is needed for the individual that's listening. If it needs to activate your light language, that's what it's going to do. If it needs to clear your throat, that's what it's going to do. If it needs to open up your third eye and crown more, it'll do that. So yeah, I just kind of like leave it open and see what comes through.
Is there any English or any translation at throughout or at the end, or is
Yeah,
it just purely?
no, I'll speak English while I'm doing stuff as well. Like my channel switches between English and light language.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing. Wow. Oh, well, I just appreciate your willingness to share that gift with us. Is there something we should do to prepare, or what would you suggest?
Yeah, you can just start by closing your eyes
Hmm.
and anchoring into your body as you find your comfortable breathing rhythm. With every inhale, you breathe in light. And with every exhale, you release all that doesn't serve you anymore. As you relax body system energy field, you stay in a space of openness and oneness. As we call on the Archangelic Collective, Michael to the south, Uriel to the north, Raphael to the east, Gabriel to the west, we call on Archangel Metatron with his blue cloak of protection from above, and Sandalphon to seal the grid from below. So we call on our higher selves as spirit guides. We call on our galactic families, Pleiadians, Lyrians, Sirians, Arcturians, Andromedans, Mantis beings with aliens, Jargons, Sassani's, Lemurians, and Atlanteans, and whoever else wishes to be present for the greatest and highest good. You're welcome in the space. Shukrukoa Ishinayatra. Triokorokoa Ishinayatra. Okorokoa Ishinokorokua Ishinayatra. Shukrukura Ishiraya. Opening, 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 opening systems, opening, opening. Ratriate kokoko kraya, 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 shiraya tra. Trenariate kora, siet kora, naya siet kora, kora, trea sierra tara. Tre ate koro ko ia nara. Opening, 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 clean, releasing, 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 letting go, letting go, letting go. Expanding, 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 calling in divine rays, anchoring, 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 anchoring rainbow rays, aurora rays into systems, opening, expanding, expanding. Rat, creator, coco, aishinayatra, tratre, crocora, iseraya, cake, kiare, to coco, naya, sierra, takra, tre, a tre, siet ko, a ra, re, ya, re, oroko, ra, riatra, niate, tia, shiet, koraisia. Krat kiena ratrea trok oro releasing, 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 letting go, 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 calling in more light, divine rays, anchoring, 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 expanding, expanding, expanding more light into blueprint structures, expanding, expanding, activating, 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 aligning, 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 aligning systems, aligning, 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 attuning, aligning, attuning, attuning, aligning, aligning, attuning, 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 aligning, aligning, expanding. Yatakashi na yatre, treo to kora krik krasi orokoro ishina yatra, tre koro 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 ko na yasiatara, trea trea tre at krea setko are tra ni na I are at kora ishie, shkroa ishina yatra, trea na re expanding, 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 more light, divine rays, anchoring, 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 aurora rays, rainbow rays, anchoring, 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 platinum white light, silver rays, anchoring, 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 anchoring codes of knowledge, 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 knowledge of self, expanding, activating, 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 attuning, attuning, aligning, attuning, aligning, aligning, attuning, 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 aligning, 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 new energies, anchoring, 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 connecting, 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 balancing, 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 grounding, 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 clean peripheral, clear, releasing, 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 letting go, 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 letting go. Taishe nara tre 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 koro koro ko ishe takra na nria tre okiero koro kot krea siet kara ishe na ya trat kro ai ishe tara na rat kre asiet rokot krai sa riare yotoko ni ishe taka tria tria trek kroatre krua ishe na ya tre tria tre koro ko a ishi shi nara Shukra Ishena Yatre, releasing, 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 na Ya korokokora ishiratra, creat creo korokora trea sierra sierra sorto na nya ishero korokora ishira yatra. Seeing, releasing, releasing, grounding, 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 anchoring, grounding, anchoring, 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 grounding, 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 and anchoring, 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 closing, sealing, sealing, closing, sealing, sealing, closing, sealing, closing, sealing, sealing, closing, 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 sealing, 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 closing, 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 sealing, sealing, closing, sealing, closing, sealing, 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 closing. Yat kroaya ishina yatro korokoko ishina yatra. Kroa ishina yatra. Gently start coming back to the body. And slowly ground back to the physical vessel. And maybe moving your fingers, your toes. Whenever you feel ready in your own time, you can open your eyes and come back to the present moment.
I don't
How
want
are
to
you?
come back. I don't want to come back. Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Yeah, that's fascinating. Wow. So, walk us through what you were doing, and yeah, and then I'll tell you about my experience.
Yeah. So again, everyone's different, but generally when I do, when I publicly channel like this, it'll be an opening of the system and energy field, and then the codes will go in. They will literally pull out what is needed. They'll rebalance, they'll attune, they'll activate, they'll align. They'll put everything kind of like back in order. Then I'll do like a general emotional clearing, sacral, solar plexus. I'll do the peripheral as well. I'll do the higher chakras. And then I'll call in rays that go in into the heart. They open, they expand. I'm literally like, as I'm saying, it's what I'm doing, sort of thing, if it makes sense. And then I'll generally seal up and close, finish, ground, balance, and bring everything back down to level. Some people might feel it more in some chakras, some in others. Some might feel sleepy, some might feel very, very high and heightened. The clearing will take up to 3 weeks for full integration. For maybe a day or two, some people might feel a bit emotional, or the astral space might be a bit more active. Yeah, again, people hear like whistling, or like things opening up in the heart, or goosebumps. So yeah, I don't know if you want to share kind of like what came through for you.
Yeah, yeah. You know, there are just different people that you resonate with on different levels in terms of what they're saying or what they're doing in terms of just life and just especially the light language. And I just really resonate with how you do it. It just feels like it feels so um activating. I'm not even quite sure the word. Like, I mean, I was internally and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope something crazy doesn't happen to me right now because it feels like it's about ready to, this is going to be embarrassing. But, I feel just a deep sense of activation, connection, um, a sense of like something's happening right now and I'm not quite sure what it is, but it feels good, and it did feel a little bit like lightheaded. I definitely felt like things were happening kind of more in this upper region. But yeah, just I resonate with what you do, and I was wanting to speak light language myself, through the experience, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm wanting to enter into this. Do you ever, with your friends or colleagues, speak light language together, kind of like either to get like with two people or in groups of people? Do you ever do that?
Especially when, like, I'm going to the desert now to do some grid work with colleagues who are all activated. So we all going to be channeling. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Of course, I do it I actually have like one or two videos online of me and a colleague where we both channeling together and at the same time. And my cat's leaving. Hey, we done with the channeling. Her job is done. But yeah, I'll do it. Not so much like I'll do it online sometimes as well. I've got like, like lives and things like that with other people. But for sure, yeah.
Hmm.
It makes
It's some.
sense that I'm sorry, it makes sense that as I'm channeling, you would feel like you want to activate, because it's if you already activated, it will activate you more.
Hmm. Yeah. And I had my eyes closed, so I'm excited to watch this video back to see your hand movements, because I wanted to make sure I was completely present and not just, watching you. Because previously I just, have watched you. So if someone is listening and they're watching and they're feeling called to this path of awakening and experiencing multi dimensions and perhaps light language, but they don't really know, where to begin, how would they begin with your work? How could you help them?
I think, yeah, I mean, I release so much online for free as well. So even if they just go to my YouTube, I do a one live a week where I answer like questions to people, randomly, or my Instagram. Like there's definitely a lot, but then obviously if they want to connect more deeply with me, I've got like collective healing events, even just for like $12, or they can come, and have a one-on-one session. And then see, there's a lot of people who, they can email me, and then, I'll suggest to them what service is better. There's a lot of people who start activating and they don't really know what's going on or how to navigate it. So
Right.
every person is unique and different. But I think something that I can say to everyone is like, trust yourself, trust your channel, and just know that the information will go where it's needed, and don't worry about what other people think.
That's a big one. Don't worry about what other people think. But what about family members who are thinking I'm crazy, or my friends? Like, how do I deal with that?
But does it matter? Like if you are speaking from the truth and that's your direction and it's from your heart, then who needs to align will align, and who can't align or doesn't want to, then they're not meant to. So it's also a lesson in non-attachment.
Beautiful. Althea, tell us, where can people connect with you online, your website, Instagram?
Yeah, sure. So my website is altealucrezia.com, and then my Instagram is Light Codes by ALA, and then my YouTube is Althea Lucrezia. So yeah, you can either send me like through my website would probably be the easiest. I personally respond to all my emails. So if you do message me through the website, it will be me that's responding. I have people who help me, but because my work is so unique and people have such interesting cases, I would never put anyone else on email. So there is a bit of a waiting time for energy work, but I generally get back to emails within 24 to 48 hours. So if you contact me from my website, yeah, that's probably the easiest way to come in contact with me. Some people message me on Instagram, but there's a lot of followers, sometimes it just gets lost.
Yeah. Althea, thank you so much for just opening your heart and sharing your story and your wisdom with us today. And we'll, of course, put all of your website and links to all of your social media in the show notes. So if you're listening on your phone now, you can swipe up and find all of those links. So thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Awaken Magazine podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and our other conversations, would you mind taking a moment to leave a 5-star review and maybe even a comment on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? That's one of the ways that you can give back to the show and help us reach more people. And of course, feel free to share the episode with a friend. And if you're not already on our email list, we send out an inspiring email every Monday morning full of articles and interviews. Just head on over to awakenedmagazine.com and click subscribe and join for free. Our hope is that all the resources we share will help our world continue awakening to love.